Hey, welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. Pastor Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Oz with his overalls are on the ones and twos. Oz, I already recognized the mistake. I did something stupid. I'm going to let you know now so that as we go through the show, we'll be corrected when we get there. Slide 38 and 39 are supposed to be at the end of section 1. And that's my bad.
It wouldn't be a normal day without you doing something like that.
Stupid. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Sure.
Let's take a look at our audiences over there. Okay. Thank you for the 62 people watching on the Combo Couch on the YouTube, and for the people watching on the Rockfin. So we're gonna get this ball rolling, get it started, and we'll go from there. So
Give me a second. I have to email the link to the guests. So just
okay.
chat it up.
Is my mic on, Oz, or is it just okay?
Your mic is very much on.
All right. Testing 1, 2, 3. It sounds really, really low. All right. So if you guys haven't seen, well, Fam is going to email the link to the guest. We do have a givesendgo.com/support the Combo Couch. We are going to Colombia to observe their elections. A lot of election stuff going on, a lot of election stuff heating up. So it's always great to go look at other countries, see the simplicity of what they do, how it works, how effectively it works, what doesn't work. There was criticism about what was going on in Honduras. For instance, when you went to go sign in, you had to go to your party's table, and your party's table would direct you where to go. I told the Libre Party to try to eliminate that because that's really, really bad. Therefore, people can easily get pointed out and bullied for voting for certain people or get bought off because they know which party they're going to be voting for. So if there's party tables there in the beginning of the election, it really causes the problems. In Nicaragua, they didn't have that. They had just one normal table you went up to, you showed your ID, This is your name. You go vote for whoever you want to vote for. You don't know the people's persons, parties, their affiliate, what their ideology is. You just know where to go, and then you run and go do it. So that was that. I heard that Patrick, Jack Klugman talks about Patrick Lancaster has a new video of the Nazis. That's awesome. Shaka, thank you for loving our work. Jilly Love, it's always great to see you. Lauren's fine. Loud and clear, Pasta, says Larry, fine. You're physically going? Yes, we are physically going. So we need actual help with our fiat stash or our Bitcoin stash or our Ethereum stash. You can always go to thecombocouch.com, find out where you can donate. Somebody left an amazing, amazing Patreon last night. I'm going to go pull it up too while fam gets rolling as well. I can't thank you guys enough for that. That was amazing. And thank you to all our Patreons. You guys are awesome. Fam, you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Since you know what we're all about, let's do it. Let's roll right into it.
Okay. So guys, I had to put this in the folder because I want you guys to see how ridiculous some of the theatrics that happen along with this Roe v. Wade, because all it is, it's a fundraising scheme. It's a ploy by Democrats to distract and fundraise off of an issue they could have stopped if they cared. Like if they wanted to, they could have codified Roe v. Wade. They could do that right now by getting rid of the filibuster and doing that. Everybody knows the procedure of how that can happen, but they refuse because they can fundraise off of it. And so they're not going to do it. And yet these people are falling right for the same type of bullshit theatrics. And here's Elizabeth Warren, by the way. And before I even put Elizabeth Warren, I want to lay out a couple things, right? I said this a few days ago. So get ready for the next few months of exhaustive focus by the mainstream media, politicians, and hacks, including pseudo-revolutionary groups, PSL, on this orchestrated distraction campaign for funding while our economy tanks, debts increase, food shortages rise, and we continue to fund Nazis in Ukraine. And here it is. Before I go to Liz Warren, this section I thought to include Anna, because Anna is just as theatrical, if not more, than Liz Warren. And she did this whole thing, this whole theatrics. And I want you guys to watch, because TYT is trying so hard to be MSNBC light, and we know this, but like I just wanted you guys to know what they put out, like what, because you guys don't watch TYT, right? And this is the reason why you don't watch it, because these people are complete and total hacks, and they pretty much have become the same type of railing lunatic as you see on Fox or CNN especially. And I don't know if you saw this, Pasta, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And
fight for each other, fam.
What?
Let's go fight for each other. Let's go fight for Ukraine. I just could seeing that last week. I can only wait to see what this is all about. No, I have not seen it. So this is going to be the first reaction from Anna Kasparian.
Imagine if we were like TYT. I just want you guys to imagine.
We'd be financially set, right? We'd have, at least that's going on.
All right, Oz, you can play the video.
We don't even have paid family leave. We don't even have affordable childcare in this freaking country. Okay, and the people who fight against those kinds of laws are Republicans.
And yet,
what do you want them to do with their kids when they have to go to work? What do you want them to do? What do you want them to do?
God.
You want them to answer that freaking question. Answer the question. Journalists, ask them the question. Ask them. Ask them.
Isn't it amazing?
Ask them the goddamn question. God.
Isn't it amazing that not one Democrat has shown 1% of the passion that Anna has today?
They don't care.
They
They're
don't
fine.
care.
They're
They don't
fine.
care.
They're all so old, they don't even have to worry about it affecting them. And if they're young enough where it would affect them, they'll get their abortion.
They're going to fly to
They're
Paris.
trading individual stocks, enriching themselves. They're good. They're good. They don't care about you.
Democrats
Make sure you
do.
understand that and you feel it in your bones. They don't care about you at all.
Well, I think to be fair,
All of that fundraising, all of that canvassing, all of that hard work on the ground, they can't even get a voting rights bill passed. They're losers.
Trusha Briggs writes in, thank you, Anna, for communicating this momentous injustice and the rage we're all feeling today.
He's doing his best pasta. That was Chang doing his best pasta,
I know.
I think.
He doesn't do as good as me as I do as good as him. And you know what I'm saying? And yeah. Do you want to talk about theatrics? Phony. Where's my scorecard? I give her a 1. The Russian judge just gave Anna Kasparian a 1 for acting. You're not even on top of your voice, right? Everything's coming from here. Because if it was really emotional, it would come from here. You sounded like a high goddamn Tweety bird. Just listen to that again, ladies and gentlemen.
No, thanks.
It was none of this.
We're good.
Because it was fake. It was phony. Just like TYT. All they're doing right now is trying to do a little song and dance for another check. Because it's running out. The Katzenberg cash is gone. The Odemeyer check is gone. And this is what we have. And I can't wait to hear the fat slobs bullshit. You guys are a bunch of phonies.
So yeah, I mean, she mentioned Republicans right away because she has to. I mean, that's
exactly.
in the contract. You have to mention Republicans. And then she, was talking about Democrats also not caring, but they support Democrats. They're going to tell you to vote for Democrats if they haven't already this whole time. So, I mean, it's just theatrics when you tell people, yeah, they're so bad. They don't care about you. They're good. TYT's good. You guys are good, right? It's just so ridiculous. And then they have the audacity to be smearing journalists all the time and talking shit. So I just wanted to play that because it's very theatrical because they know that they're going to tell you in 2 seconds to vote for Democrats. And I think the next video, Oz, you have
slide 9.
is,
not Biden. Chunk.
It should be, yeah. It
slide 9.
Slide 9. You skipped a bunch. 9 is a video.
That's
no,
Chunk.
it should be 11. Yeah. I just want to show the tweet because the recount posted this video, right? And the reporter asked if the Senate should do away with the filibuster to codify Roe v. Wade, whatever. And Biden said he wasn't prepared to make those judgments. So let's hear what Sleepy Joe said.
To codify Roe?
I'm not prepared to make those judgments now. But I think the codification of Roe makes a lot of sense. Look, think what Roe says. Roe says what all basic mainstream religions have historically concluded: that the existence of a human life and being is a question. Is it at the moment of conception? Is it 6 months? Is it 6 weeks? Is it quickening like Aquinas argued? I mean, so the idea that we're going to make a judgment that is going to say that no one can make the judgment to choose to abort a child based on a decision by the Supreme Court, I think goes way overboard.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Can you translate?
I need another rest, and I'm just going to say a bunch of malarkey. And then after I have my oatmeal cookies, I'll bullshit more. I'm not ready to do that. I'm not ready to do this. You know what I'm saying? Bullshit.
I don't understand how people I mean, I get that people are propagandized, but there are people that I expect better from that are falling right in line for this thing, that are going to DC to protest for women's bodily autonomy. And I'm just like, all of that went out the window when you guys decided to not respect bodily autonomy for everybody. I mean, it really did. No, who's going to take this seriously anymore? If you don't want the government to control, and that goes for both sides, by the way, because nobody's asking conservatives to go and abort a baby if you don't want to. Nobody's asking you to do that. That's you wanting to impose your belief on somebody else. And it's just as bad as some woman that says, my body, my choice, saying you have to get vaccinated. It's just as bad because at the end, you're not going to agree with people. Nobody's saying you have to agree, but let people decide for themselves. I mean, up to a certain extent, I think, right? I don't think you should be able to go and have a baby and then kill somebody, right? Like kill a baby, because that happens too. And that's what I think would happen if you make something like this illegal. And so nobody's asking you to do it or not do it. We can all have our personal opinion as to whether we would or not. But the reality is, when you involve the government in something that is deeply personal, that's what happens. And that's like, so the hypocrisy right now is really annoying on both ends. But especially, I think a lot of the people that were, calling everyone an anti-vaxxer and doing all of this, and now suddenly, is like all about my body, my choice. And I'm old enough to remember a few weeks ago when that got you banned.
Yeah.
Right? That got you banned. I mean, I'm just so sick of this whole circus show is what it is. It's essentially a circus show. And Joe Biden, of course, isn't going to answer that, because the answer is they needed to fundraise. They needed to make money.
Yeah. And they needed to create some type of wedge issue too as well to furthermore separate the people. And, I don't know why, fam. There's a lot of times we come on here, I feel like doing my Dylan Radigan. I've been doing this for 5 years now. Okay. And nobody's talking about the real problem at hand. Why aren't we talking about why there are so many unwanted pregnancies? That's what we need to be talking about. How do we fix that? That's how we fix the situation, not the Band-Aid solutions about what happens when a woman becomes pregnant. Okay. How do we stop so many unwanted pregnancies? Why do we have so many unwanted pregnancies? There's actually statistics, studies, ways to talk about this. I just threw out a theory that I heard years ago, and and I can't find the results of it right now. I'm looking all over the internet. If anybody finds it, in Iran, after the civil war they had with Iraq, they had to change what's the word I'm looking for? Tactics, right? At the time when they were at the civil war for many years, the government was telling mothers, produce babies for the war. You know what I'm saying? Have children, whatnot, do this, have babies, those sort of things for the war. But when the war ended, after so many years, well, what do we do now? You know what I'm saying? How do we empower women? How do we have less unwanted pregnancies? How do we have less pregnancies? And they found out, okay, if we increase education, if we build a stronger workforce, if we give women more opportunities, that's going to lower the number of unwanted pregnancies. Now, I don't know if this is 100% true, but it makes a lot of sense to me that when we educate and we provide opportunities, that will fall into less, unwanted pregnancies. Like I said, these are the discussions we need to have. How do we stop unwanted pregnancies? And that should make both sides happy. Less babies will be aborted. Less women will have to, fight to get an abortion when they want one. God forbid Roe v. Wade gets taken down. These are the discussions we need to have, and we don't have them anymore. Everything is distraction, divisive. That's your enemy. Let's fight each other. And you said this the other day, fam. This is one of the most divisive friggin' wedge issues there is out there. Wedge issue gets a new meaning for this one, because the wedge goes deep when you start talking about this shit. So why don't we talk about real solutions?
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you 100%. So the next tweet is Oz. I don't know if you have it queued up, but it should be the tweet and then the video of Elizabeth Warren having her theatrics. But so I'm going to read the tweet first. And this is Catholics for Choice, fam. Catholics for Choice. Thank you, Senator Warren, for coming out and lending your voice at the hashtag SCOTUS, People of Faith Unite for Abortion Rights and Reproductive Freedom. We are the pro-choice majority. We are not going back, not ever. Roe v. Wade. So that's their mantra. We are not going back. The thing is, there's just so much. I mean, it's just, yes, you're not going back. But the thing is, I look at this as like, do people really think that the United States wants like a bunch of babies roaming around? Like not just the United States, but like first world nations, right? Do people really think they're going to allow a bunch of like, people who are anti-abortion to just say, oh yeah, let everybody have a free for all and just have babies without any sort of contraception, any sort of like the country that like completely has big pharma, has Monsanto. You guys were talking about earlier on the morning show, Bill Gates. You have the merger right now happening between Monsanto, Bayer, and a lot of pharmaceutical companies that's happening. You have that whole population control mentality. I don't buy that this is a thing. And by the way, as I pointed out, now a lot of people are backtracking. A lot of media, they're saying, well, we don't know for sure that this is, legit. So now they're backtracking. As I mentioned yesterday, there is no evidence that this is actually like something they're going to do, that this is actually a thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's an opinion. Opinion piece.
Can we play the video, Oz?
In the notes, there are number 13.
13. Yeah, that was
down below.
Yeah. So I mean, I just think that that's I don't buy that this is a thing. Like, I don't buy, this is just something they use to fearmonger women into thinking we're going to become ruled by a bunch of Christian, white supremacists, not even white supremacists, just Christian fundamentalists, right? Mm-hmm. And they do this, they fearmonger through these shows like Handmaid's Tale, and that has, the whole premise of Handmaid's Tale, Pasta, I don't know if you know, but it's,
I do not.
They go back to the puritanical era, and women have no rights, and women are second-class citizens, and a lot of liberals love that show, but they love it because they always meme it like, oh, it's Republicans. Like they're the ones, the fascism we're looking at. They're completely ignoring the fascism that's literally right in front of them, with a surveillance state, the Ministry of Truth, with the control of all of our media, all of our social media, the spying on American citizens, the fact that you have no say as an American, your vote doesn't count. We don't have fair elections. I could go on and on about all the money being pushed into war and none of it coming in here. That whole thing is being ignored purposely by putting this wedge issue in front.
Count on this video how many masks you see people wearing outside.
Okay.
Angling for decades now, and we are gonna fight back. I am angry because of who will pay the price for this. It will not be wealthy women. Wealthy women can get on an airplane. They can fly to another state. They can fly to another country. They can get the protection they need. This will fall on the poorest women in our country. This will fall on the young women who have been abused, who are victims of incest. This will fall on those women raped. This will fall on mothers who are already struggling to work 3 jobs to be able to support the children they have. Well, I am here because I am angry, and I am here because the United States Congress can change all of this.
Did you add something to the folder, Pasta? Maybe.
Yeah.
You added something and it took it out because I'm positive I had it in here. I just added a slide.
I have seen the world.
Yeah, I added slide 14.
And we are not going back.
That's not the one I wanted. I added the one I wanted.
No. So say it with
Elizabeth
me.
Warren one?
We are not going
Yeah, this
back.
is not it.
We are not going back. Not
14.
Ever. Not ever. Not ever. Not ever. Not ever.
There. Okay, so that was one video. We're going to show you the one that is actually the one I was talking about because...
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. This one too was pretty messed up. I wanted to show this one too as well because she took a chance. She took a little shot at like, this is not going to be, about rich people. A rich woman can get on a plane and fly and whatnot, and go get an abortion in a different country, different state. Which, once again, I think
it's
a lot
true,
of
though.
Yeah, but see, I mean, that's not who's to blame.
No.
For this, you know what I'm saying? And it's still
them.
just divisive when you start saying that shit. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I don't think that's as divisive as like when you're saying it's just Republicans, when Democrats have all the power right now, right? Like, I think that's divisive. And yeah, I mean, this is a class divide situation here, because the people that are, it's factual, it's historic.
Yeah.
When women used to get pregnant and they were of a high class, they would go away somewhere, get an abortion, and come back. That's what would happen back in the day. That is a fact.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that they automatically say it's the Republicans. Yeah, the Republicans are anti-abortion, but very damn well your party, Liz, could have done something about it, and they never did because they can make money, and she's not recognizing that at all.
Oz, with this one, instead of cropping there, can we just put the whole screen up? Why not? Yeah. Put that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Senator, how are you feeling?
I am angry.
Angry and upset?
Angry and upset and determined. The United States Congress can keep Roe versus Wade the law of the land. They just need to do it.
I've never seen you so angry. You seem to be...
This is what the Republicans have been working toward this day for decades. They have been out there plotting, carefully cultivating these Supreme Court justices so they could have a majority on the bench who would accomplish something that the majority of Americans do not want. 69% of people across this country, red states and blue states, old people and young people, want Roe versus Wade to maintain as the law of the land. We need to do that. And we have a right. Extremists, we've heard enough from the extremists. And we're trying to make
Senator, does this open the door for the constitutional rights?
So again, her party could have done something. Her party keeps actually putting in Democrats that are anti-abortion. This is bullshit. This is just stupid. I don't even want to spend more time on it, but it's like, this is what people are focused on now, right? And they're going through these protests and they're doing these things and they're so upset and they're hailing a leak, Pasta. When was the last time that you've seen liberals talk about leaks in a positive way? Because the last leak I remember from WikiLeaks, they're still saying it was Russian propaganda, just like you showed yesterday with the schmuck.
Well, I mean,
they're still, yeah.
I was just going to say they were happy with the whole leak from the Trump administration with the whole Ukraine situation, in which they, and they really played that one off nicely, right? That was all oh my God, people are going to find out what we're doing in the Ukraine. Let's go and impeach the president to try to distract from him. You know what I'm saying? It was so fucking stupid. But that was, aside from that, yeah, I mean, here we go.
They're only happy with leaks that come from mainstream media or one of their assets, right? Remember the Frances, whatever her name was, Frances, whatever, like the Facebook leaker, like that woman. Yeah, like that. Anytime you have like corporate news or some sort of intelligence asset leaking things, it's not a leak, it's a PR stunt, guys. It's not. Anyway,
so Bree kind of went after Obama because Obama made a statement with Michelle on the draft of the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. versus Wade. The most entertaining part of this whole leak, the Obama statement that he made, was on the bottom of the first page. It says the consequences of this decision would be a blow, not just to women, but to all of us who believe that in a free society, there are limits to how much the government can encroach on our personal lives. And I'm choking, I'm laughing so much. And this decision is unlikely to significantly reduce abortions, which have been steadily going down over the past several decades, thanks to large in part better access to contraception and education. Okay, so they kind of mentioned that about contraception and education. First off, the first part of them saying, in that paragraph over there, that this is an encroachment on a free society, that the government shouldn't overreach. I mean, are these people so friggin' hypocritical? And it is like both sides, like you said, fam, on this situation. It's really ridiculous. You just were pushing mandates and this whole freaking boop thing, and now you want to sit there and say this is an encroachment on a free society? I mean, there is no limits to how much these people will lie, fam, and how phony they will be. Bree said, So nothing about why he didn't codify Roe when he had a super majority in his first term? Nothing at all. And fam, you've mentioned this before. They've had ways to codify this if they wanted to. They have a way to kind of codify it right now by eliminating the filibuster, but they're not going to. So, I mean, it is all theatrics. It's all phony. They want to raise money off this. They want to divide people. They want to create another wedge issue. It's just a bunch of BS. And it's so coincidental that this came and leaked the same night or the same day within the same 24 hours that our good friend Nancy Pelosi was going back to Congress to sign a $33 billion more to the Ukrainians to pay their whole freaking government right now. Like, we have to pay for their government, the government that they supported in 2014, same type of BS. That's what we're doing. And yet everybody else gets nothing. So nobody's talking about this in the mainstream media right now. They're talking about this stupid distraction that they put out for us.
Yeah. I mean, this is taking up, so much crap. That's why we're going to have our guests on to talk about the important things, how to spot false flags, what's going on in Russia, Ukraine. Our guest has written countless articles on false flags, because you have to understand what a false flag is. It doesn't mean that, there's fake bodies, or that, the situation doesn't really happen. It means that it is manipulated. And how these things are manipulated. This isn't a false flag necessarily, but it is a manipulation. It is a purposefully leaked thing, that they wanted people to see and get up in arms about, period. Because it attracts attention. It does great for fundraising. It distracts the public. It is a PR stunt. I studied PR, which is narrative management. PR is just, all it is narrative management, right? Mm-hmm. And what you do is, if you have a brand or a person that is in trouble and is being viewed negatively by the public, because public perception is everything. And this is how they view things, right? And they're like, well, you have to create an event or a situation where that person can now look better, or you can change the public perception via certain things you do. It's basically marketing, but for people and an image rather than, a product. And so they do this, and it's so easy to spot, because once you know, it's kind of like the regime change playbook. Once you know the playbook for manipulations and false flags, you can spot them anywhere. And this is one of them. Every single media, gigantic media, corporate media, decided to come out and say the same thing. Every single congressperson that's on the progressive end, the liberal left, decided to come up with the same type of verbiage, the same type of outrage. And it was extremely timely, like clockwork. And that's how you know it's not real. They're trying to get a rise out of people.
There's two things they're not talking about right now, right? They're not talking about the $33 billion they just handed off, and they're not talking about the whole Pfizer dumps that, the Pfizer information, what's going on there. Like, nobody's covering those two things. They're just going to distract you with so much stuff. And it's up to independent media right now to really take the ball and run with it, to call out the BS. I mean, that's why I'm excited about this new guest over here, because the false flags, I mean, they're just getting so far out of hand right now. And to be honest with you, fam, they've been failing on them. That's why they had to cancel, RT and take them off the air and whatnot, because they were losing the propaganda game. And that's what we're witnessing to this day. So, yeah, you want to read us some super rays real quick and talk about the quick talk about the fundraiser, the Give, Send, Go?
Why don't we wait for that till the end, or before the guest comes on?
Is the guest coming on any second?
No, 4:45.
Okay, so you want to do the next section?
Yeah, we're gonna do the next.
Bust right into it. Let's bust right into it. I'll wait for I'll hold the super race too as well.
Okay, great. So as expected, right? As we told everybody, this was gonna fail miserably, and it's not because we were like wanting it to fail necessarily. Although at this point, I think Democrats, progressives, whatever, they need to fail. It's because they're not addressing the issue, guys. We don't have fair elections. 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 So everything that you do when you're running a candidate, when you're starting a new party even, or when you're supporting a third party, if you're not addressing The fact that we don't have a system where a third party, a person that is progressive or whatever can even compete, then you're just taking people's money for fun, because you're not addressing the fact that electoralism as we know it is dead. And I think I'm more pessimistic about this than past days, because I don't think that this can be fixed with judges and a court system. I don't, because I think they're compromised as well, because this is a systemic issue, right? So Nina Turner lost. And Nina Turner's loss, though, based on what I've seen and everything I researched, I don't think it was just due to election malfeasance, because first of all, nobody can tell me it was or it wasn't, because we don't know, right? We don't get a count. We don't get any sort of metrics to measure this by. But there's no transparency, no chain of custody, none of that. But however, there was not as much excitement for her this time around, because people have lost faith, understandably so. They're more apathetic. There just wasn't that level of support. And also in this political climate where you have the left and the right so divided, right? And you have people that like Nina Turner that embrace the squad, who, by the way, only endorsed her one day before the election. That endorsement and those alliances are going to hurt you more than they help you.
Who endorsed one day before the election, fam?
AOC endorsed her one day before the election.
Not the whole squad, just AOC?
Not the whole squad.
Gotcha.
Yeah. There was a couple members of the squad that had, but then they stayed quiet the whole time. So it's like, what good is, oh yeah, we like Nina Turner, but then we're not going to, do anything. But just in this climate, right? And I think you would agree with me here, Pasta, that the alliance with the squad, with AOC, with all those people, and the same tired politics of, just Medicare for all, not talking about the surveillance state, not talking about COVID, not talking about, anything that's happening with independent media, the attacks and censorship, just focusing on we need a Green New Deal, we need Medicare for all, we need this, then that. The same type of rhetoric that you heard the squad, people aren't going to jump into that as much. If you had a candidate that was like Nina, but then embraced independence and started talking to Republicans, she could have potentially won, because you would bring people that don't vote and you would bring people from the other side. But instead, when you're competing with a neoliberal and you're barely any different than a neoliberal, and the neoliberal knows their audience, knows who they're going after, knows that they need the Jewish vote in a very Jewish heavy district, they're going to beat you, because they are who they are. You're trying to be them, but like slightly better. But you're trying, you're trying to compete for the same slot instead of being something different and getting votes from outside. And the Democrats don't get this. I can't tell you how many times I've said this to people in the Bernie campaign. He needs to try to go back to 2016 where he could get. Nope, they don't listen. They think being a little bit more centrist is going to get them votes. And here is yet another example that it simply doesn't work. So here are the results, and this is from the AP, the trusted source of results. Chantel Brown, at this last I checked last night, got 66.3% of the vote to Nina's 33.7%. Okay. And so a lot of people were like blaming the Republicans. Here's a Republican. The Republican Eric Brewer won with 8,000 votes at 57.6%. The other one, which I think was an independent or something else, had 5,976 votes, or 42.4%. Those votes combined wouldn't have changed the outcome for Nina Turner. That means she's not getting voters outside of her ideology, which in this climate, you have to do. You have to do. It's time to switch up your dumb strategies of your hyper-partisan bullshit, because everything is changing right now. There are conservatives that are more anti-establishment than a lot of liberals and leftists. And that's the truth. And that's the truth. I don't know what you think of that, Pasta.
No, keep going. I'm all there with you, 100%.
Okay, so this thing. The next thing I want to point out is that last time around, when they had the special election in 2021, last year, the race was much closer. According to NBC News, Brown beat Turner by 5.5 percentage points in the special primary in the summer. And then, of course, then she went on to win because the district is heavily Democratic, right? So again, they thought, oh, if I pretty much mimic this person's policies, just make them progressive, I'm going to win. If I reach out to the centrists, I'm going to win. When in reality, they shouldn't be reaching out to the centrists. They should be reaching out to...
When you say centrist, what do you mean?
The regular school Democrats.
Like the
liberals.
The blue dog Democrats? Okay.
Not just blue dog, like liberals, status quo, like liberals that support the Democratic Party straight up, no questions asked, right? Like not necessarily progressive, just vote blue no matter who type.
Okay.
Yeah, that's their strategy. And I know that's their strategy because she has the same type of people in her campaign that worked on the Sanders campaign. And their strategy is to go after the centrists, to go after the liberals. It's not to reach out to independents. It's not to reach out to libertarians. It's not to reach out to non-voters. It's certainly not to reach out to Republicans. But I'm saying if they actually adopted that strategy, they would win because nobody wants a status quo politician saying the same shit anymore. People are tired of that.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. I don't think she lost just because the election was unfair. I do think she lost because of the bad choices they made. So I had to put this up, Pasta, of your favorite person, because
you must be Jordan Sheridan.
Because apparently when he put this out, I was like, what? So apparently Nina Turner said that squad members were threatened not to support her, and that's why they didn't. So, they were threatened. Who gives a shit if they were threatened? Number one, threatened with what? Like, we're going to take you out of this committee. Who cares? If your career is more important than serving people, then you're in the wrong career. Like you're not doing this for the right reasons. Yeah. So yes, thank you for further evidence that they're pieces of shit and that they're worth nothing and that they're never going to do anything for you, no matter how much you beg them. Okay. Thank you. No excuse. No excuses needed. Second, she will consider running as an independent for the 2024 presidency, Pasta. So she failed.
As an independent.
Yes, she failed. She failed though. As a progressive in a congressional district. Now she's saying she's going to run as an independent in 2024. What?
So stupid.
No, because if you're going to run as an independent with the same Democratic type of strategy, you might as well call yourself a Democrat.
It's too late.
It's
too late. It's too late.
She would not say who she was referring to as PNOs, progressives in name only.
Look in the mirror, Nina.
She called somebody progressives in name only, so she wouldn't clarify what that was. But I want to play a few minutes. I think I put Oz 40, 44 or 33, something like that, to something. I'll stop it if you don't have the numbers, but I think I put them in there. Of her speech, where it's really weird, Pasta. I don't know what would make you consider running for president after such a heavy loss, but hey, let's go ahead and play this.
They said that we couldn't take on the $1 million super PAC money. That's what they said that we couldn't do. We know that they were wrong because this is just one step.
Okay.
We have faith
let's
and we have the fight.
26
so let
and
me say this
27 and then go straight to 28.
Sister
So we have
ain't
time.
going nowhere. Mama's goal tonight is intact. And this is what I do know. That in the spirit of Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, I'm unbought and I'm unbossed. And that's why that money came in here. Because they know in the halls of Congress that I was going to shake that sucker. On behalf of the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class. But that's all right, Pastor Early. They can't contain this black girl magic. Because what I am going to do is I'm going to take this magic
all the states where she has a lot of progressives that donate to her.
And that just like King James, LeBron James decided to take his skills to South Beach, but what Sister Turner is going to do is to continue taking my skills all over this nation, and I'm going to see some folks in 2024. Hello? Stay tuned. This is what y'all asked for. My mama used to say, sometimes you're going to get what you asked for. And that corporate money coming up in here this way to suppress and malign the voices of working class people in this district, in this nation, and in this world. Let me tell you something, they ain't seen nothing yet. They gonna get what they asked for. Sister Turner unleashed. That's what they gonna get. That's what they wanted. Turn time. That's what they wanted. And that's what they gonna get. So I'll see you all in 2024.
So it's really odd. I don't know. I don't know why she would think that she should run for president, but
I don't either, fam. She just kind of she pretty much 86 the Pinos, which she's talking about progressive in name only, which I don't even know what that means to her anymore, right? She doesn't
Right.
represent anybody, any conservative or libertarian or anybody outside the box. She has a small base now, and she made it smaller this time out. What is she think she's going to do now? Like,
I
if
don't
you
know.
can't win in your own state, you can't beat Chantel Brown. You think you got a shot at the big ticket because you can stand up and be so, energetic about what's going on? That shit ain't gonna work no more. People want real solutions, and you ain't got them.
Yeah.
You
This
back the
climate is
wrong
not-
ponies.
this climate is not for it, for this type of politics. It's just
I
not.
vote
Like,
for
we're
her.
done with it. We're done. We're done with it. Like, it's boring. It's ineffective. Where people are fucking suffering. Like, we don't need any more of this fluff. Remember Pasta when we used to love Nina Turner? I was just
Love Nina
like,
Turner. Loved her.
dude, it's crazy. Like, just a few years ago, like it's crazy. I don't even recognize. Like,
Finding yourself with warmongers and idiots and who don't care
It's
about
just-
civil liberties or anything, not going to challenge the vote and let it just go. Nobody knows Chantel Brown. And if there's ever an area in which they would cheat, that could be a good area. You want to know why? Because there's a big Zionist contingency there. So anybody who's an anti-Zionist, they got to double punish them to make it appear that anybody who pushes back against AIPAC or any of the lobbyists has no chance whatsoever. This is the ripe area. And once again, if you do your due diligence and you challenge every single bit of the election, but hey, you're probably for mail-in ballots. Hey, you're probably for unmanned drop boxes. Hey, you're probably for a couple weeks of voting. Hey, you're probably for no IDs because we ain't heard you say anything about it. And you don't even know if you legitimately won or lost both times. You're just accepting what they tell you. Proprietary software counting your elections, counting your ballots. Come on, Nina. Come on.
so
Sorry, but not.
let's just go through this real quick. That was their response. No matter what happens, Team Turner 2022 left it all in the field. And then Cenk Uygur, here's the things I wanted to get to before I want to summarize this whole thing. Cenk Uygur, he put out a nice tweet. I love the effort and the fight that Nina Turner put in her race. I'm proud to have fought with her, because he donated about $28,000 via his super PAC to her, by the way, just in case people forgot. She had a super PAC as well. Okay. With super PAC and all. Now, the second tweet I really want to point out is what we said he would do all along, right? We were counting the minutes before he blamed everybody who didn't support her campaign this time, because they know electoralism isn't it right now. They know that this isn't it. Like, we don't have fair elections. So yeah. So he was like, for all the progressives who left Nina Turner on the battlefield alone, do you feel proud? Do you think you were politically savvy? Do you think the establishment likes you now? Good luck with your new friends in DC. So
Sounds
there
like all
it is,
the,
Cenk.
the Democrats, fam, blaming all the progressives when Hillary lost to Trump. Sounds almost like
Yeah.
the same exact thing. That's
Yeah.
That's what I heard. Like, yeah, go scratch.
So very much expected from Cenk Uygur. But why did she lose, guys? I just want to get to this. Why did she lose So Sabby had this whole thing, right? She said Nina Turner said the squad was threatened, so that's why they didn't endorse her. I'll say this again for the 100th time. Until you get money out of politics, this Dem reform strategy won't work. The party is owned by Wall Street. So while I agree with Sabby that the party is owned by Wall Street, and that money in politics is a problem, she didn't lose because she didn't have money, because she outraced her opponent. And I will say that. I don't think it's just because they, it was the money. What Pasta said is true, and what Sabby says is true, that the powerful machine is there. They have the Zionists supporting Chantal Brown. Yeah. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I think this was more than money. I think this was her own politics getting in her own way, not knowing to reach out to other sectors. Well, here it is, Pasta.
She wasn't genuinely going to be able to represent those people anyways, fam, because of her ideology, you know what I'm saying? Or at least her perceived ideology of what she's showing.
Yeah. I mean, she wasn't able to represent anybody because she was trying to play both sides. And that's when you try to talk out of both sides out of your mouth, nobody understands what you're talking about. So here it is, the fundraising report, right? Nina Turner had $6,328,447 raised. She spent a little bit more than that, and the cash at hand was $1,443,473. Chantal Brown had $3,960,000, and so on. And she spent about almost as much, and she had about $757,004 at hand. So,
which proves that it's not just about money in politics, fans.
Right.
It's about corruption in politics. That's the issue. You might have more money, you just outspend her. You saw what Nina Turner did. Why didn't she win? Because it's about the corruption in politics.
Right. It's about the corruption in politics. The fact that I can't say for a fact that her election was fair or wasn't fair because we don't have a way to trace it. So yes, I do think a lot of it is her fault, but I also think, a lot of it is the system, right? That's why electoralism isn't it. That's why we don't really cover electoralism. I'm covering this now to show further proof that electoralism isn't it. And so I went and I started researching about Ohio's election laws, right? And there was this Secretary of State in Ohio is a conservative, and he's been trying to pass conservative legislation to try to have more of a chain of custody. And basically what happened is it went back and forth essentially, but in Ohio, you can request a vote by mail ballot. There's a whole process for it. It's not as easy as it is in California, but let me read, I think slide 35 real quick. All Ohio voters whose registration information is up to date have the opportunity to vote in an election from the convenience of their own homes by requesting an absentee ballot. And they can vote early, blah, blah, blah. And then the deadline to request an absentee ballot is 3 days before the election that you want to vote. And then you can request your ballot for each individual election beginning on January 1st or 90 days before the date of an election or whatever is earlier, but you must complete and submit a separate application for each election in which you want to vote. Your request must be received by your local county board of elections by noon the third day before the election, usually a Saturday. So they're a little bit more strict than other places, right? And you can return your ballot to the board in person, or a near relative can deliver it, Pasta. So they can have a near relative deliver the ballot, but there is no ballot harvesting, as in slide 38, I believe, right here. Ballot harvesting is against the law in Ohio. So there's no ballot harvesting. And the drop-offs have been eliminated except by the Board of Elections. There's one, and that's the one that you can turn in for yourself or a near relative. So Ohio has stricter, they still have vote by mail, but it's a lot more strict than it is in like California, whatever, New York, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
And just to close this off, I just want to say the issue of the Jewish population, right? The Zionist population in her district. She tried to go back and say, oh, I'm against BDS. She says it right here. on slide 40, she says, I believe that Israel has the right to exist as a democratic nation in the Middle East. And I believe in justice and security for Israel and justice and security for Palestinians. And then she also clarified her position to being opposed to BDS, the BDS movement, and rejecting calls to eliminate Israel. She said, just as I would not support sanctions on us because of the actions of our government, it is not appropriate in the circumstance to place sanctions on Israelis for their government's actions. But has she said anything about the sanctions we place on literally like all these other countries?
No.
No. So there you go. She's pandering. And then the last thing, her representative, her spokesperson, said that she supports Iron Dome funding and strengthening and expanding the Abrams Accords, a series of diplomatic agreements that normalize relationships between Israel and a number of Arab nations. He also said Nina Turner would vote in favor of the $1.5 trillion omnibus spending package that passed the House last month, including billions of dollars in U.S. assistance for Israel's. So what's the difference between Nina Turner and Chantel Brown at the end of the day, if this is how she's going to vote to pander? You know what I mean? So if she would have won, she would have had the same type of foreign policy, essentially. So this doesn't work. Pandering to somebody, it doesn't work. You either have to be different and genuine or know your base and really go full neoliberal, because this is what's going to happen time and time again. This is what she lost. She lost because she didn't really know her audience.
Nice. Good stuff, fam. Our guest is here.
Yes, our guest is here. So we have our guest, and I'm excited to have this guest on because now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of the things that are actually important. So Ukraine and Russia have been talking, has been this whole conflict that the U.S. has propagandized a certain way, and we only get certain bits of information here. But Russia has accused the U.S. of trying to push false flag operations on them, and the United States has so much as hinted that they were going to do this. And our guest today is Jeremy Kuzmarov, and he writes for Covert Action magazine, and it's a magazine that our friend Gloria is also a part of, and it's a great magazine, lots of great content. You guys should check it out. But Jeremy, thank you for coming on and having this discussion with us.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Okay, so I'm going to start off asking you like a very basic question, because you focus much of your writing on false flags and connecting events and connecting things. So let's start with the propaganda surrounding Russia, Ukraine, and how that's been developed, in your opinion.
Sure. Well, I mean, one propaganda, the Bucha incident, that appears to be a very clear false flag that led to passage of this major bill to loosen regulations for arms supplies, right after, very conveniently, in these huge, another round of huge military aid package by the Biden administration that was voted on by all the Democrats. And I mean, if you look into it, I mean, even the mayor, this massacre allegedly occurred when Russian troops were retreating from Bucha, which is a suburb of Kiev. But the mayor said nothing on the day they retreated, March 30th. He said, the city has been liberated. There were no reports of a massacre. And then there was reports after of a sweep by the Azov battalion to kind of clean it up of any pro-Russian collaborators. And that's when, after they're announcing, 400 victims. But then there are these satellite images that came out that only showed 9 victims. They're claiming 400 victims, and there are no eyewitnesses. And the satellite videos are odd. And, the bodies would have been bloated. They claim that these bodies were first there when the Russians were there. And so that proved the Russian did it. But, Scott Ritter analyzed it very closely and said that, these bodies would have been bloated if they were out in the streets for 2 weeks. Any police investigator know they would have been bloated. So they had the appearance of only being there after the Russians had left. So this is one, case that we see very blatantly that they're promoting this narrative of Russian genocide and atrocities to support an escalation of the war. Why their U.S. involvement? These huge arms supplies, and I mean, the whole thing is in a way a false flag. I mean, the Russians were set up for years now. They were provoked. And that, there was, behind the scenes, the U.S. government was manipulating things from supporting the Maidan coup of 2014 to training, the Azov and other militias, to supplying huge amount of weaponry to the Ukrainian army as it attacked eastern Ukraine on Russia's border and committed all kinds of atrocities there. So that was going on for years and years. But barely reported in the U.S. media, and Russia was constantly being accused of things like even downing this Malaysian airliner jet in 2017, and the evidence pointed more to Ukraine being behind it. Although we don't know all the facts because there's a lot of cover-up, but. So this incident, among others, looks like another false flag, and it's all designed to condition the public to see Russia as evil and that we have to go in there militarily. And this could be leading to a major U.S. military intervention or world war and even nuclear war. It's very, very dangerous.
Let's digress a little bit for a second, because you said something over there that Ukraine provoked, or at least the government since 2014 has provoked Russia. I've said before that Putin and Russia are 1,000% justified for going in with military actions to make sure that there's not a hostile nuclear entity on their border, one that hates actual Russians. You've done a lot of reporting over there. Is that a fair statement when people say that? Because I do see this kind of footsie being played with some of the independent media of people who want to both sides things and say, oh, I condemn war all around and Putin should have done this. But you use the word provoked. I mean, is that a legitimate statement to say that this is justified?
I think so. I think any country would respond the way Russia would respond. I mean, if the same thing were going on the U.S. border, in Mexico, China or Russia was interfering, sponsoring a coup d'etat, sponsoring neo-Nazi regiments, attacking provinces that voted to secede and were very close to your country, encircling you militarily with a hostile military alliance like NATO. I think almost any country in the world would respond the way Russia has. So it's a very sensible position to support the Russian invasion and more defensive. There are arguments that is legal within international law as measure of self-defense. I think there are debates among legal scholars as far as legality, but there is a strong argument that Russia is actually legally justified.
Fam, can I have a quick follow-up?
Yeah, sure.
Is it also justified for Russia to make sure that they take Odessa and the south of Ukraine, cutting them off from the Black Sea after what we just witnessed Ukraine do for the last several years?
Certainly from a Russian point of view. I mean, we're not there on the ground, but it seems clear that a lot of people living in that area favor the Russian side. I mean, I think the Ukrainian population may be divided. The western part of the country is more oriented to west, but I think eastern Ukraine, cities like Odessa, they've experienced the tyranny of the Ukrainian government that was imposed in the 2014 coup. They've experienced massacres like the burning of the trade union building. They've experienced attacks by the Ukrainian army and neo-Nazi regiments and open torchlight parades. So I think a lot of those people of those areas look at the Russians as liberators. And from a Russian point of view, it makes sense strategically to establish a buffer if they're going to annex Donbass and Luhansk and claim territory around the Crimea. It strengthens their country and serves as a kind of buffer against threatening aggression from either Ukraine or the West, which is very real because the Biden administration openly has talked about regime change and weakening Russia. And Putin's been a target because he's a more nationalistic leader compared to his predecessor, Boris Yeltsin. The U.S. clearly wants a kind of patsy like Yeltsin. Navalny seems to be their guy. And Putin is a target of regime change. He knows it. He witnessed what happened in Libya, Syria, and I think he's fearful the same thing would happen in Russia. And Russia, of course, is a very strategic country, huge oil and gas wealth, and the whole region the U.S. wants to control in Central Asia.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it seems like there's I don't know what you think about this, but it seems like there is a globalist fight, right? A globalist takeover by the West, an attempt to have this global surveillance state. Do you think that Russia, particularly Vladimir Putin, is in opposition to that in terms of not just a nationalist type of sense, but an opposition to, say, the plans of the World Economic Forum and the attempt to pretty much globalize this countries into one sort of entity where everything is extremely similar and nation states sort of cease to exist in power.
Well, if you look at the track record of Putin, I think he started out as being very pro-Western and wanted to be in alliance with the West. I mean, there are oppressive features of his rule, but I think he gradually shifted because, to put it bluntly, the West didn't play nice and the U.S. didn't play nice. I mean, the U.S. was extremely aggressive in the region in general and pushing for NATO expansion and pushing for control of the resources of the entire region and pushing regime change. The minute Putin went up against some of the oligarchs that were tied to the West who had looted Russia in the 90s, the minute he stood out against U.S. policy in Iraq and took some more independent stances in line with Russian opinion, that's when the U.S. became hostile towards him and started trying to undermine him through various ways, including through the National Endowment for Democracy was used to support civil society groups that was really opposition groups. Through this demonization campaign against him, through the coup in Ukraine. And that's when Putin slowly became more and more assertive in standing up to the United States, allying with China as a kind of counterweight. I mean, I see the Russian-Chinese alliance as a kind of counterweight to U.S. and Western imperialism and could pave the way towards a more multipolar world order that would probably be more beneficial towards humanity. I mean, if you look at what the One Belt, One Road initiative and all development projects that China is sponsoring, I think Russia and China are much less imperialistic, aggressive in their relation with other nations. They have far fewer, military bases than the United States. So I see it as more counter to Western empires, which have been dominant since the 1500s.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen The Waterboy, the movie. Have you, Jeremy?
Is that with Adam Sandler? I think a long time ago, yeah.
All right, so
I don't remember all the details.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk about one scene real quick to just kind of set a scene so you can understand what I'm talking about. Towards the very end of the movie, in the last football game of the movie, the water boy hadn't showed up yet, and the team was playing without him. And they were just trying anything to do, to try to move the ball and get on the scoreboard. They were getting slaughtered. And there was a scene where they looked across the way, and as they were calling plays, the other coach was looking at Football for Dummies. And it kind of signified that he had the playbook to know exactly what these guys were going to call every single time. Russia's been calling out these false flags. Where did they get the playbook from? How do they know so many times beforehand that the West and Ukraine is going to try something before they even try it?
Well, they know from experience. Yeah, I wrote a book called The Russians Are Coming Again, and went back 100 years. The U.S. has been trying to sabotage Russia, the Russian government, since the Russian Revolution at least, when communist government took place that nationalized the economic resources. The U.S. actually invaded Russia at that time with 6 other Western countries. And really from that time forward, with a brief period of smoother relations under Franklin Roosevelt, who I see more a visionary compared to almost every other U.S. leader, the U.S. has been trying to undermine Russia and use every kind of skullduggery and dirty tactics, including after World War II, supporting, familiar playbook of supporting neo-Nazis. In that case, Stepan Bandera and the Organization of Ukraine Nationalists, who had slaughtered the Jews during World War II and the Holocaust. And now again, they're supporting neo-Nazis with the Azov regiment. So, Russia has seen this many times over, and they've, Putin and the circle are smart. I mean, I think the one, Yeltsin was, even Gorbachev was a bit naive, and they let their guard down a little bit. And look what happened in the 90s with NATO expansion. And I think that the U.S. and West saw the opportunity with the demise of the Soviet Union to kind of go for the kill and dominate that region. And Putin woke up to it pretty early in his presidency, and he's trying to, stand up to it in his way.
Well, I think they want another Yeltsin because he was a drunk and fall down. But one little quick follow-up to that, is it because, too, as well, not just seeing a pattern in this and understanding this, right? Like they've been there for a while, and obviously Putin's a really smart guy, ex-KGB lawyer, whatnot. If you haven't seen the interviews with Oliver Stone, they're amazing. But is it because there are so many Russian speaking people within Ukraine, that would also help the intelligence apparatus to get a jump on some of the false flags before they happen?
Yeah, I mean, Russia historically has had very good intelligence, and they're very well attuned to that. Yeah, they've been supporting the rebel groups, in Donetsk and Luhansk. So yeah, they have a presence on the ground that they can catch that. And some are just obvious. Some are being telegraphed right before us. I think the West has grown and U.S. so arrogant that they telegraph what they're going to do, and it's not hard to figure out. But they don't seem to care. And they're never held to account by their own people.
Gotcha.
So in terms of, the false flag operations you mentioned, the Buka, there's also been several other attempts that the media has tried to blame Russia on. But most recently, Russia claims that the U.S. will accuse them of using biological, chemical, and nuclear weapons. And the State Department has hinted at this as much. Several of them have let out little tidbits saying, well, if Russia were to do this, if Russia were to do that, or if there was some sort of, biological chemical attack, it would definitely be Russia. And they've been putting that out in the media. So Russia has denied that they even have biological and chemical weapons. And they pointed out very astutely that the only country that has had all three is the United States. So what happens next, do you think? Do you think there will be a sort of false flag attempts? I know I constantly read about Russia saying they're looking at this. They might use this. They might use that. They have the civilians. That bodies that they use civilians as human shields and all of that. And they labeled out the three ways that these could potentially happen, from the most likely to the least probable. And do you think this is going to happen? And if so, what do you think happens after that?
Good question. Yeah, I think it's probable. I can't say for sure it'll happen, but I think it's probable that it'll follow the Syrian model, where they blamed Assad. There'll be some kind of attack that was either staged, or like in the Syrian case, there was one attack that it was a conventional bombing that it struck a fertilizer plant. So the air was filled with debris, and it was easily made to look like a chemical weapons attack, even though that never happened. In the other case, it seemed the rebels groups that the CIA was supporting set this up to blame Assad, to engender U.S. military intervention, and it's very likely they'll follow that playbook in Russia, and it'll be used to ratchet up U.S. military intervention further, possibly even full-scale military invasion or bombing, like they did in Syria.
But in terms, I guess, of a follow-up, in terms of the Russians acting on this, right? So let's say they get blamed for X attack. What do you think their action will be? Because the United States has continued pushing the needle on this. They're really pushing the buttons, poking the bear, so to speak, because they have there was a congressman that recently introduced a new AUMF to unilaterally give Ukraine not just funding but full military support. And so it seems like some of these people in the State Department are very keen on starting any sort of war, and they think Russia's bluffing when Russia says they would hit back if the United States or the West did something like that.
Well, yeah, I think it's a very dangerous situation, and I think Russia has shown that they will hit back. In way we don't know exactly. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Putin Diary. That was a very good film with Oliver Stone. And one thing I remember from watching that, Oliver Stone interviewed Vladimir Putin, and one thing he said was, every action invites a counter reaction, and so they're going to react in some way. How, I don't know, but I mean, it could even lead to a nuclear war. I think that's the ultimate danger. So. I think this is, playing with fire. I mean, this is a very dangerous policy that the U.S. Biden administration is adopting right now.
Let's pivot to J6 because, man, did you write an article that ruffled some feathers? Did you not? Right? So, I enjoyed that. You're talking to two journalists that were at the Capitol on January 6th. We went to educate people on elections because that's what it was. It was a Stop the Steal rally. What are some of the bits of evidence you found through your investigative journalism that show that January 6th could have potentially been a false flag?
Well, I think key evidence centers on this guy, Ray Epps, who's a Marine intelligence officer who is featured, giving an incendiary speech the night before. And then on the morning around, right before the, Capitol barricade was breached, there's a video that shows him whispering in the ear of a guy by the name of Ryan Samsel, who turns out was a criminal who was jailed after this and was actually beaten up badly in jail. It looked like he was threatened, a really bad beating by guards. And Epps had been on the FBI most wanted list, but then was suspiciously taken off that list when, as you know, a lot of people were being arrested, in some cases given draconian, very long sentences, sometimes simply for being present in the Capitol for half an hour or something, or given like 5-year jail. And, I know one committed suicide. And yet the guy who appears to be a key mastermind, because again, it featured in the video, he whispers in Samsel's ear, then Samsel kicks over the barricade, and that leads to people, storming the Capitol. And I think Trump was still even speaking at that time. So that sequence is very suspicious. Who is Epps? Why was he taken off the FBI most wanted list when they're arresting all these other people? And I think he had even been called out in that video when he spoke at this rally the night before. The audience chanted, "Fed, Fed." They knew he was a Fed and informant. And we also know that there were a lot of provocateurs within the Capitol 6 rioters. Many FBI, even the head of the Proud Boys had been an FBI informant. And we know the historical pattern that the FBI infiltrates groups left and right with provocateurs I think it's part of, a strategy of tension. They want to provoke violence. So the public becomes uneasy and ends up supporting draconian legislation, which tramples on the Bill of Rights and U.S. Constitution that they wouldn't normally support. And there are other suspicious things, that need more investigation, like the suspicious deaths. There are like 4 suicides right after, 4 Capitol riot police committed suicide right after. That's real odd. And then one woman, they said she died of a drug overdose in the middle of this. It's just some odd things. And then the pipe bombing the night before would indicate, and they never caught the culprit. He was sending pipe bombs to Democratic and Republican headquarters. I mean, it could be an odd lunatic who somehow got away with it, but more likely it's a coordinated plot. If you remember, after 9/11, they had the anthrax scare. And they used this to scare the public, and the public loses its rational thinking skills and ends up just supporting legislation that's against the public interest and creates ever more of a police state.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened after, is a domestic violent extremist attempts by the State Department to label anybody that was in opposition to any status quo rule, whether you were an animal rights activist, an environmental activist, or a Proud Boy or whatever. All those labels were now put out to people, and then there was a whole department that was dedicated to finding these people, and we were there. I mean, we saw what it was supposed to be, and we saw then what it turned into, and it was kind of surreal being there and getting images from CNN and from the mainstream media that was there trying to say this was an insurrection, and we saw a completely different side of it, and it really did seem like there were agent provocateurs there, and it's kind of like, once you know the playbook, I think, of false flags, you can kind of spot them easily. Is there a specific or a quick rundown you can give of what constitutes a false flag, at least in the construct of the United States?
Sure, yeah. I think a false flag would normally be described as some kind of a terrorist attack or riot or crime that's committed by government security forces and provocateur with the aim of blaming an enemy, disguising their role and facilitating this crime. And it's often part of a strategy of tension, designed to get the public to become very fearful or fear a certain group and think there's a huge threat of terrorism, and ends up supporting legislation that usually, like the USA Patriot Act, that tramples on civil liberties and human rights. And I mean, you can look after World War II, though, the Operation Gladio in Europe, where the CIA created these stay-behind armies that staged terrorist attacks, including in Italy, and blamed it on left-wing groups, and was part of this strategy of tension. Or you can look within the United States at various events.
Yeah. So, fam, you want to go over to Rockford real quick since we asked a couple more questions? We want to ask Jeremy some more questions about the boop boop. We can't do it here on YouTube.
Yeah, we can do that. Just real quick before we do that, I have one I guess quick follow up on that. You talked about I guess you know what? I guess this kind of goes along with it. Kind of goes along with it.
We're already talking stuff about J6 and elections today. We're pushing.
Yeah, that's true.
Guys, go over to Rockfin right now, ROKFIN. We're going to leave YouTube because we're going to ask Jeremy some questions that we don't want to get in trouble for over there. So please go to Rockfin right now. Now's the time. We're going to leave YouTube. Thank you for everybody who participated in YouTube today. But like we say, we have to go to our free speech platform. I'm going to see Jilly Love already put the link in. I'm going to tell you this much. I'm going to invite Jeremy on the morning show next week to talk about the Oklahoma City bombing. He wrote a book disguised as an article about it and got all the receipts there. And he's going to come talk about that on the morning show, Anarchy in the Morning, next week, if he has time for us over there. But for right now, what we want you to do is click that link in the chat right over there that Jilly Love and Craig Pasta Jardula put up. That is a link to our Rockfin. We're going to ask Jeremy a couple questions about the boop boop, and we can't.
Unfortunately, guys, we're censored on YouTube if we say the wrong thing. So sorry, Jeremy, but we do have to go to the other platform. You know how it is nowadays.
We're leaving YouTube in 5, in 4, in 3. Thank you, everybody who joined today. In 2, we love you, especially you, Jilly Love. In 1, on over to Rockfin and bye, YouTubers.